Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new episode of the MACE Podcast. I'm your host, Marco Macente, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you. This episode is wonderful and it is a super standalone as our stop is Spain with the amazing Lucy Brazier. Lucy is one of the world's leading authorities on the admin profession. As CEO of Marcham Publishing, specialist publisher of executive support magazine, Lucy's passion is for the assistant's role to be truly recognized as a career and not just a job. With access to the most forward thinking, passionate, and knowledgeable admin business leaders in the world, as well as personally meeting and speaking to literally thousands of assistants over the last 10 years, Lucy's knowledge of the market and what assistants all over the world are facing on a day to day basis are second to none. In 2021, Lucy was awarded in recognition for her services to office professionals. I'm so proud to have here Lucy with me, and please enjoy our conversation.
Hi, Lucy. Hello, and welcome to the MACE Podcast. I'm so happy that you are here with me, and I'm looking forward to this interaction. How are you?
Oh, very well, thank you. It's always wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk to you.
It's a pleasure, Lucy. So, thanks a lot for your time and for your availability. I have already shared with the audience a little bit about your history and your background. And I would like to move ahead and ask my first question because, of course, I look forward for this interaction. So, Lucy, you are one of the most recognized leaders in the admin profession. As a global trainer and speaker, you are traveling around the world to teach thousands of assistants how they can be successful and how they can behave as truly business partners for their executives and their business. So we have seen a change in the profession. I'm sure that you agree with me, especially with the pandemic, where the common tasks and duties of an admin professional are gone and replaced by new tasks and responsibilities related more to project management, business partnership, strategic support, and even leadership. So could you please share with us which are the trends that you are seeing in your classes and in the business to help us recognize the new horizons the profession has?
I think it's so interesting, Marco. Thank you. It's a great question. I think it's so interesting that coming out of the pandemic, I feel it's almost created more opportunity for assistants than there was before. And that's because for the executives, it's never been more important that they actually do the thing that they are paid to do. Because for most executives, they are trying to recreate the world of work and keep their employees safe and make sure that, of course, in some cases, businesses actually survive. And so they have got to have their heads in doing what they are meant to be doing, which is leading. But that means that the assistant needs to step into doing all the things that we have always wanted to do for so long. And of course, that means things like project management. It means preparing briefing documents. It means making sure that the executive is up to speed with what's happening in the background. And I have long maintained that the assistant skills and the executive skills are very, very different. They still have the same characteristics, but if you take the skills of the assistant and you take the skills of the executive and you put them together, it makes one whole complete person for the business. And I think it's important that we remember that it's the business that employs the assistant, not the executive. In fact, we're doing a whole heap of work at the moment with all sorts of businesses around working with them as to how to best utilize their assistants. And that's because, and I find this astounding, for the very first time, they're saying to us, how can we prove the return on investment of each and every administrative professional? How can we make sure that we're performance managing them and giving them clear goals and key performance indicators so that, like every other member of staff, their performance is measured? And we're very clear about what the expectations are, and so are they, so that the business is getting the most out of them. And don't you find it extraordinary that here we are and they're only asking this question for the first time? But I think that's probably because we just came out of the pandemic and they're being asked to look at how they measure everybody. And it hasn't quite occurred to them before that they have to measure the assistants as well. I've just been dealing with a business that had over 500 assistants. They all had different job titles. In fact, there were 60 different job titles in that one company. All the assistants had been employed individually by the individual executives, so they all had totally different job descriptions. And it took us nearly a year to track down the assistants to actually say, well, this is who they are.
Yeah.
So, I think coming out the other end of COVID, everything just changed. So what's one more change? What do you want the role to be as an assistant? Because we're by no means shaken down yet. And it's a good opportunity to think about where the role is headed and what we want to add in terms of value to the business.
Amazing, Lucy. So let's try to get our 3 takeaways from this question and from your insights. If you agree with me, I would say that one important topic is that the executive and the assistant are 2 faces of the same coin. And I love this sentence that actually comes from you, because I heard it in one of your training. And we have understood that the assistant and the executive work together, and the assistant is a business partner, so definitely can provide a strategic support to the manager, to the executive, and this can make the difference not only for the executive but even for the business. So the impact that an assistant can have is definitely in the business, in the organization, and I think that this is simply amazing. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is that we can shape the role to the new needs of the business, right? So it's a matter of shape, it's a matter of perspective, it's a matter of horizons, right? So can we say that the pandemic has at least brought something positive for the profession?
I totally agree with you. I think, as I said, everything just changed. So what's one more change? And whilst they're working out what the world of business looks like, if you don't take the opportunity to step into that and to say, this is what I can contribute to the business, and this is what your return on investment is going to be in me, then quite frankly, you're foolish. Because I think moving forwards, some businesses are going to be trying to work out what they're doing. Some businesses are going to stay exactly the same and hope that it all goes away and they can get back to normal, whatever normal is. But the one thing that's absolutely clear is that the executives need to be free to do their role. And
Absolutely.
That's where the system comes in.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So thanks a lot for these insights. I'm sure that our audience will treasure these insights as I will. Let's move on, because I have another question for you, Lucy. So you are the CEO of Marcham Publishing, and your magazine is one of the most important sources of information of admin professionals all around the world. Can you please share with us what is the magazine all about, how it is made, and which are, in your opinion, the most hot and important topics assistants should take into consideration to develop and grow in their role?
Yes, thank you, Marco. So I started the magazine 12 years ago, 12 years ago in March 2023. And in fact, prior to that, I've been running it as a newsletter. But the magazine is totally training. It's the top trainers in the world writing for it. There's no advertising in it. And the reason I started producing it was because I could see a gap in the market, because assistants weren't getting training, and nor did their executives or their learning and development departments want to spend money on training them. They didn't understand what they would get out of it. And so I figured that by producing the magazine bi-monthly, it's 48 pages of training, we would get training into the hands of the assistants, and the HR departments would say, okay, so we've provided some training for the assistants. And we've always tried to be, I suppose, almost like a Harvard Business Review, but for executive assistants, specifically for executive assistants. And you will see more and more, particularly since we relaunched in 2021, that we have been focusing on business topics. And there's a very good reason for that. And that's because it used to be that an assistant could get away with being support and sitting outside of the core business and just helping. And it isn't that way anymore. Assistants absolutely have to understand how the business works. And I think most assistants know an awful lot about their businesses, but they don't necessarily understand it. And there are so many acronyms, and there are so many, the language of business can be quite hard to understand sometimes. And I think I often would like to write a book that was on understanding the language of business for assistants, so that they felt they could be part of that conversation. So rather than just knowing a lot about your business, really rolling up your sleeves and starting to understand it is important. And so the magazine now, there's a lot of inspiration in there. There's a lot of practical stuff, but we have also really started more and more to lean on doing articles that are on business and how business works and how the assistant can support with that.
Absolutely, and I want to witness, because I read one of the amazing articles that your magazine has published. For example, the one that are related to leadership skills, the project management skills, how we can make the difference in our workplace in order to prove to the business and to our manager that we are able to bring an added value to our table. And of course, I can witness the magazine is focusing right now on business topics, on topics that assistant can use in order to bring an added value, in order to make the difference and be recognized as truly business partner. So thanks a lot for sharing those insights also on this topic, Lucy. Let's move on, because we mentioned that you are a global speaker and trainer, and you are teaching different topics in your classes. I had the pleasure to attend the Executive Live, the conference held in London, where we met together with hundreds of admin professionals coming from more than 7 countries. I found interesting, in particular, one of your classes, the Modern Day Assistant course, a 2-day training where you teach admin professionals how to be strategic business partner. Being a strategic partner, Lucy, has been always one of my objectives. Could you please share with us briefly what does it mean for you being a business partner nowadays?
Yes, I think that for the longest time, the executive was up here and the assistant was down here. And it was seen rather like a master and servant relationship. And it absolutely is not that anymore. And in this new world of work, there's an awful lot of talk about collaboration, which I think it's important to understand, because collaboration is going to be your future. Now, collaboration, I've got a really good analogy that explains the difference between the old way of working, which was teamwork, and collaboration, which is the future of work. So with teamwork, and my analogy, by the way, is putting on a play. So with teamwork, you would have the actors, you would have a sound engineer and a lighting designer and somebody who did the costumes, and of course the actors and somebody who was a director. And nobody has to particularly like each other, but there is a goal of putting on the play and everybody works towards it, and the director tells everybody what to do. They work hard and the play gets put on. Collaboration is totally different, because it isn't just working together, it's thinking together. And the end result comes from the efforts of everybody bringing their skills in one place. So in the case of my play, you'd probably sit down on the first morning and everybody would talk about how they felt this could be the best play that it could possibly be. And it's about trust and it's about respect and everybody understanding that everybody in that room has their own skill sets and they bring them all together. Now, the thing that's so important about that is that you have to have goals, very clear goals at the end of it. Otherwise, it's chaos. And what I'm hearing more and more about the future of work is that we're not going to anymore be tied to a 9-to-5, because that was something that was invented by Ford, so that people would be working the same hours in his factories. What will happen moving forward for those of us working in a hybrid environment is that the business won't care when you do the work as long as it's delivered on time. So there will be clear goals. You'll be working collaboratively with people. And if you go back to what I was saying earlier about the executive having certain skills and the assistants having very complementary but different skills to the executive, and the fact that they are really one complete proper business person that's needed by the business to be successful, then that isn't a master and servant relationship. That's a collaborative way of working. And that's the two of you working in partnership. So whereas in the past, what you would have is the executive embarking on a goal and making some kind of emotional and intellectual journey until they achieved that goal, and the assistant would be running along behind them going, how can I help? Now that isn't the way it is at all. What you have is the assistant and the executive working side by side, understanding what the goals are, and both bringing their skills together to achieve the goal. That to me is proper strategic business partnership, understanding the business, working together and bringing your unique skill sets together in a complementary way to achieve the goals for the business.
I absolutely agree with you, Lucy. And this is something that I actually try to do, not in my daily work, actually, not just one day or a couple of days per week, but each day. Being a truly business partner means being able to work in tandem, to work together with your executive. I totally agree with you. And you spoke about respect. You spoke about trust. We have companies and organizations, right, that are showing a culture of respect, a culture of trust. So we can say that the partnership between an assistant and between an executive is mirroring the same values and the same qualities that the companies and organization wants to show up, right, in order to be seen as good. So we can say that the partnership is not something that can be built in just one day. I'm sure that you agree with me on that. But of course, it's a process, it's something that takes time. But when there is this kind of partnership, is in this moment that the magic happens. Do you agree?
I agree totally. I think, though, that it takes probably 18 months to build that trust. And the best way to do it is to choose maybe, well, first of all, you get employed to do a job. So you do that job and you do it immaculately, because when you do it immaculately, then they will allow you to take on additional things. But if there's scope that you want to build out as far as your job is concerned, and you want to become more strategic, I would be going to them with no more than 3 things that you really want to implement. And I would be talking about what it does for them and what it does for the business rather than what it does for you. And I would be showing how you're going to measure it in terms of time saving and in terms of cost saving. And then I would deliver it, and I would keep checking back with them to show them how you're doing it. Because when you do that stuff and you do it immaculately, it builds trust. And then next time you want to do something, or if you want to continue to expand your role, you're able to go back and say, well, you know, remember I did that stuff last time. And it really helps. But 18 months, I think, is probably the amount of time it will take for you to build that relationship. Because quite often assistants come to me and they go, it's horrible, he doesn't trust me or she doesn't trust me, and I don't know what I'm going to do about that. And I say, well, how long have you been there? And they say 6 months. And I go, well, of course, of course, right? It's earned trust. And that's by doing your job, as I say, immaculately.
Immaculately. Yes, I totally agree with you. And I mean, it takes time. We need to be patient, but at the same time, we need to be excellent in what we do in order to show up and be seen as indispensable, I would say, from our executive and managers. So another little topic that I would like to ask you is about speaking up. So we know that assistants are speaking up. And there are a lot of admin professionals right now that are advocating for their roles and wanted to speak up in order to bring their solution to the business, and they wanted to understand and want to make sure that their voice is heard. What do you think about that? What do you think about the speaking up from an admin point of view?
What I think is that it's important to understand what you're speaking up about. I think, of course, assistants need a voice. Everybody within the business has a voice, and assistants absolutely shouldn't be left out of that. And you should have your opinion heard, and you should be able to push back, and you should be able to come up with ideas and very much be part of the leadership team, especially if you're at a senior level. But I think understanding where the profession is heading and understand where you fit is particularly important. And I know that you have spoken before about the Global Skills Matrix on this podcast. And that for me is core, I think, to really understanding what level you're at and what skills you need to take you to the next level and what your business can expect from you. And you look at the Global Skills Matrix and you think, how fantastic. This is a career progression, a career framework for assistants that's coming globally. But it's so much more than that. When you start looking at what it does for businesses, and when you're talking to businesses about how they're going to implement it, the knock-on effects of implementing something like the Global Skills Matrix from a point of view of giving assistants an identity and a starting point to talk to HR and to talk to their executives about what they're capable of and how they can push the envelope to show what an assistant can do for a business is immeasurable. And I think anybody who hasn't downloaded it yet should very definitely do so. And if you do that and you don't understand it at all, then please come and talk to me, because I have myself and Helen Monument from the World Administrators Alliance, which is the organization that led this and drove it forward, have committed that for the next year we'll speak to any HR departments, any L&D departments, or indeed you, the assistants themselves, about how you can implement that at your businesses so that you have a proper career progression and a proper performance expectation at the middle of your role. And I think that is core to every assistant understanding who they are and feeling that they can find a voice and speak up.
Thanks a lot, Lucy. Thanks a lot for your insight. And of course, it depends. It's not a one size fits all, right? When speaking about admin profession, we have understood this when speaking about the job titles, when speaking about trends, horizon and perspective. But of course, we need to find our identity. We need to find the context in which we are in order to find our why, our purpose, and to let our voice be heard accordingly. So I totally agree with you. Thanks a lot, Lucy, for these insights. So we love you for your incredible work and your energy. You spend continuously to advocate for the admin profession. And we have seen a great improvement. Thanks also to the amazing job you have been doing so far. So Lucy, what's next for you? Is there a project or an initiative that you are working on and that you would like to share with us?
Oh gosh, Marco, so many different things. I mean, a lot of it's more of the same. Of course, we're continuing to do the magazine, and I'm continuing to do my 2-day course. And we've got live coming up next year, both in South Africa and Australia, both of which I'm very excited about. But the two really new things that are happening next year, which I'm very excited to share, are that firstly, I have just signed a book deal for my 2-day course. So that will be coming out, I believe, September next year, but that's secret. You can't tell anybody that yet. So that's a real insight.
It could be a secret.
And the other thing is that we are developing a piece of technology around the Global Skills Matrix, which is costing an awful lot of money to develop. But what it will mean is that you as an individual will be able to test yourself and to see which level you are and look at your skills gaps. But you will also, as a business, be able to purchase the piece of technology on behalf of all of your assistants and test all of them on what level they are and see then what training you need at each level. So it isn't going to be anymore a case that you go, what shall we do in terms of training for our assistants? Why don't we do some communication? Or why don't we do some leadership? You'll actually be able to see absolutely clearly what do the level 3s need this year in order to make sure they're exceptional. Well, that's what they need, and that's a huge project, and it's taking up an enormous amount of my time, but it's one that I think is going to really change the landscape for assistants.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, especially the second initiative that I think it's a good investment, because we will see for sure on a long-term basis a good results, improvements, even for admin professional, but for organizations, then the ones, to find a consistency between the level and between the grade and between what they are looking for in order to fit a role, or to look for an admin profession that can help them to reach new business goals. So definitely those initiatives are really amazing. Thanks a lot, Lucy, for sharing these with all of us. So thanks a lot, Lucy. It has been a pleasure to have you here with me in the MACE podcast. I'm sure that the audience will treasure all the insights, the suggestions that you have shared today, and as I will, of course. And I want to thank you for your time, because I know that you are very busy. And of course, I look forward to meeting you in the next event in London, why not, or all around the world, because I'm sure that you will be there. Thanks a lot, Lucy.
Thank you so much, Marco. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and I shall look forward to seeing you again in person very soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.